Good morning, Mojave County. This is Janssen Villegas, and welcome to the Janssen Show. Today, we have the luxury of meeting with Mr. George Miller. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me first. This is a great platform to share with the community. My name is George Miller. I'm the Director of Business Development for Talas Harbor Mental Health right here in Bullhead City.
Cool. So being in that industry, it sounds like you do a lot for the community and, helping people that obviously need help and that sort of thing. We've partnered with you because we are going to be gathering donations. I'll go ahead and read this off. It says, "Come and see Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus taking donations, presents for patients, gifts like books, crosswords, scarves, and gloves. Tuesday, December 7th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Talas Harbor Mental Health of Bullhead City has partnered with Finley Motor Company, Chevy Buick and GMC, to collect Christmas presents for patients in hospitals, nursing homes, assisted living, home health, and mental health inpatient hospitals." So we're doing a really great thing. Go ahead and let us know kind of how you stumbled across this industry, or, have you been doing this your whole life?
Yes, actually I've been doing both. I have a background in business and I have a background in healthcare. I was a clinician for years. I worked ER, and then after that I ended up gravitating to mental health. Because there's a really interesting thing. When you're working in the ER, oftentimes it's very obvious the problem that they have when they present to the ER.
Right.
If it's not, you can do a couple of diagnostic tests and then you can figure out what's going on with them in a relatively short period of time. Mental health's a little different because oftentimes people come to the ER or to a facility and everything on their exterior looks fine. They look like they're not having any issues, but actually they're screaming inside.
Oh, I see.
And so that pain is just as real. And I'm a veteran. I worked in the military hospitals.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I saw a lot of the people come back from the different wars and skirmishes. Wow. And so there's a definite need for our veterans here in the community, and
Absolutely.
We're servicing the veterans as well as the civilian community. So we have, for 18 and older, we have an inpatient facility, and we're right here in Bullhead City. And the reason why it's so important and why I gravitated to it is because nobody's immune to mental health crisis.
Right.
At some point in your life, you're going to hit threshold, and it's nice to know that there's a facility here that can help you over that hump and get moving on with your life successfully.
Absolutely. So it sounds like a very kind of like a claustrophobic, like you're stuck in your body type feeling in regards to like how you mentioned that inside there's a lot going on, a lot of pain. So it's one of those things that I wouldn't even know how to identify something like that. So I can't even imagine how difficult it is for people. Have you had to deal with, is it a personal thing that you started doing this for, or is it just something that you kind of, like you said, gravitated towards?
Yes, like I said, I worked in the ERs prior to mental health, and then I had the luxury of working with some of the best psychologists when I was working mental health in California before transferring here. And I got to write a couple treatment programs for the state of California. And so I got to see firsthand a lot of the pain and suffering that people were going through. And it became a passion of mine to be able to work in this industry. And it's really, really critical that we understand that a lot of times people are suffering and it's not easy to see, like
Right.
I said. And trauma, you can't unring that bell. You suffer trauma, and for some people it stays with them their whole life. And so it's really important that there's resources available to them to help them to be able to function.
So you come from LA?
I was working in the Fresno area, California.
Is there like, in no way do I ever mean to sound insensitive, but is there like a type of mental health, like is there more of something there than there is here? Like here, do you deal with more PTSD because there's more veterans, or is there a difference, or do you just see everything's so case by case and different?
It's everywhere you go, you're gonna see a lot of the similar issues. A lot of people, regardless if you're in a rural area or urban area, you're gonna suffer trauma.
Okay.
Nobody's immune to that. Whether it's loss of a loved one, post-traumatic stress disorder, being a victim of a violent crime. So some people, it's really important that they have those resources available to help them over that. And like I said earlier, nobody's immune to it. If you haven't had a crisis yet, that's great, but at some point in your life, you're gonna have.
Do you think that people that are going through a crisis realize they're going through a crisis? I mean, what's the first step in somebody that feels like they are going through something? I mean, do they call a number, or how is it something that you find because you went to a doctor and they told you, or is it something that you have to independently say, I'm going through something?
Sometimes people are definitely well aware of it, and other times, they may be trying to deal with it on their own and not know that they're needing help until it does hit threshold, and they get to a point where they can't function in their day-to-day operations, and then they're like, okay, I need to get help over this hump, and it's really important that they know it's okay. And this is one of the things that I've seen a big change in the industry right now, because in the 70s it wasn't as common as now, where people were seeking counseling and mental health support.
Less
now
resources.
it's not uncommon.
Right.
Most people you talk to have had a counselor or a therapist that helped them throughout a time in their life. And even therapists, I worked with chief psychologists, and oftentimes they would go to therapy, because it's important to have somebody to bounce stuff off of, and be able to help you, vent whatever it is that you're struggling with.
What would you say is, like, for example, somebody that wants to deal with something on their own, what would you say, why would be the reason that's not the most helpful route to take? Like, if somebody wants to deal with, they're going through something, I don't want a therapist, I don't want counseling, I'm going to do it on my own, I'm a man, et cetera, et cetera. What would you say to those people in regard to seeking help?
It's funny you bring that up, because I worked in the prisons and I used to drive the ambulance.
Okay.
And one of the calls that I would get is panic attacks. And oftentimes the inmate would be a very muscular, 250, 300-pound guy. And he would think that he's having a heart attack, and actually he was having a panic attack.
Oh.
And so I would pull him out and talk to him and do his vital signs and take him over to the ER, and we'd do an EKG and check up on him. And everything was okay, so we realized it was anxiety.
Yeah.
And for some of them, they would have claustrophobia, but they didn't know they had claustrophobia until they got incarcerated, which is really unfortunate.
Oh, wow, yeah, no.
But, and so a lot of times they would have to come to terms with that yeah, you're having anxiety. But sometimes when it first presents itself, it may feel like a heart attack.
Yeah, because so mental health immediately translates to physical health as well. I mean, it affects your physical health as well?
Oh, sure. You're going to see elevated blood pressure. People become diaphoretic. That's where they're perspiring. They might have double vision, headaches. So some of the symptoms may present as, cardiac, when actually it's mental health. So you got to do all the tests first and rule everything out.
Right.
And then once you've done that, okay, they're potentially having anxiety. Let's address that.
Wow. So you just genuinely never know what somebody could be going through inside.
And so that's why it's important when you do have those symptoms that you go to the proper, be it a hospital or whatever the case is, and get checked out. and find out what's going on, and then that way you can address that issue appropriately.
In your career, and I know I'm like bombarding you with questions, just so interesting, it's just, in your career, is there a particular situation that stands out for you in regards to like all the patients that you've worked with? Is there anything in particular that you're like, this situation was just super heartwarming or difficult?
It was actually a student that I had, because I taught business and medical programs
You're everywhere,
at the
right?
college for years, and I love both sides. I love being in the medical field, and I love business, and this is kind of a crescendo, because now as the director of business development, I get to use my business experience, and I get to use my medical experience, because
Right.
I was a clinician for so many years. So this is a great position for me. But one of the students I had, one of the things that I do in when I teach a college class, I was teaching public speaking at the time, and one of my students would have, essentially she would have a panic attack getting
Right.
up in front of audience. And a lot of people do not like public speaking.
No, I get sweaty hands just doing this with camera.
You know, there's only probably a handful of people that can do what we're doing right now, let alone get up in front of 500 or 1,000 people that they
Right.
don't know and give a presentation. And so this was a class of about 30, and they would have to get up and give presentations. And the first day she got up there, she became diaphoretic,
man.
and she was pale, and she almost looked like she was going to pass out.
She wouldn't have known until she got up there, though.
Yeah, and she realized that, okay, this public speaking's, I'm having a hard time with this. But this was a prerequisite that she needed to be able to move forward.
Oh, I see.
And so I got her a chair, and I sat her down. She's like, okay, so I don't have to give my presentation? I said, no, we're gonna start you off in a chair, and we're gonna work our way
cool.
up, and we're gonna desensitize you to this. And by the end of the semester, she was actually able to give a full presentation
Cool.
in front of her group successfully, and that was really great to see somebody have a paradigm shift in their self-image
Yes.
like that. And that wasn't unlike me. When I was in the military, the first sergeant came up to me and he says, "You're going to be giving the briefings from now on." And I
Right.
was like, "No, I'm not giving the briefings." And he's like, "No, you're going to give the briefings from now on." I was like, these guys are going to eat me alive. I am
Right.
not getting up in the auditorium and giving a briefing. And if you know anything about the military, they have what's called direct orders, and you have to follow them.
Period.
And he's like, "Sergeant Miller, this is a direct order. You are giving the briefings." And so I got up there in front of the officers, and I gave my briefing, and all my worst fears came true.
Wow.
I told them I was nervous, I was ill-prepared. Were they empathetic?
You announced it.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, they just ate me alive, and it was like that for a couple months until I got a little thicker skin, and then after a while you get a rhythm to it, and I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. And so when I came back to the States, and after I got out of the military, regardless of what industry I was in, that ended up becoming a real asset. 'Cause
Absolutely.
be it a hospital, I said, I'll give your presentations if you like, and people were handing them to me left and right.
Absolutely.
When I worked for the prisons, the same thing here. Yes, please give this presentation. And the same thing at the college. And so it ended up being an asset. At the time that I was doing it for the military, it was a little painful, but once you get to where you can manage your nerves, then it ended up being a real asset, because there's not too many people that like public speaking.
Are there any practices that one can do to try to like stray away from falling into that type of whirlpool where it's just you're being dragged by your own thoughts? Are there any techniques or anything you're encouraged outside of like eating healthy and sleeping and things like that?
Oh yeah, and this is where psychologists and psychiatrists are really important. Is they have a lot of resources available to them,
Right.
to help you get through that, and sometimes it may take a week, sometimes it may take a month, sometimes it may take a year before
Right.
you can totally move forward successfully. But most situations within a couple weeks to a month, they've given you a lot of tools to help you be successful.
Oh, because in getting to know somebody, you can pick up what they need. Like you kind of like assess them as you're doing therapy.
Oh, the psychologists and psychiatrists. I'm neither one of
Okay,
those,
gotcha.
but at that level, yes. You know, they're able to dissect and diagnose what's going on and come up with a therapeutic plan that's going to help them.
So, like, for your role, what does a day-to-day look like for you? I assume you're really busy, you know, with everything. Do you coordinate a lot of events, or are you just out talking to people, trying to get awareness to mental health? What does a day look like for you?
It's a little different every day. I meet with industry partners and let them know if we have a bed available, so that they know that the resources are there and we have the facility available should one of their patients need that level of care. So sometimes I'm doing that. I'm meeting with the hospitals, the Veterans Administration, and different industry partners. Other times I'm hosting events like this because it's important not just to go around to the hospitals, but also to let the community know that these resources are available. And so Presence for Patients is a great way to do that, to get our name out there. We partnered with Catholic Charities. They're going to be the ones that are actually going to distribute the gifts.
Okay, cool.
And so it's really important that you partner with a nonprofit organization and let them distribute the gifts. And you know, they have the capability to go around and find out where the needs are and distribute them really effectively. And Catholic Charities does great at that. And so they were the first people that I went to here in Bullhead City and said, I'd love for you to partner with us on this. And they were really excited about it. And Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus are going to be there. And so it's a win-win.
Right.
We're going to be gathering gifts for our patients, and the kids are going to get to meet Mr. and Mrs. Claus.
Absolutely.
And so it's great to be able to do this for the community.
I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
So December 7th, we're going to go ahead and host this event. We'll be taking donations pretty much now, right? From up until then?
Yeah, most of them will be right there at the day of the event, because
Okay.
Catholic Charities will be there and they'll have the staff there that's going to be able to collect it and distribute it.
Okay, so then encourage the community to come down December 7th
Yes.
with their donations so that the nonprofit organization can give it out to the people in need, or that, you know, need them and that sort of thing. If you had anything to tell the community, because I know a lot of helping people that have mental health issues is friends, family, and, you know, being able to be supportive to these people. What would you encourage to the community in reference to if you know somebody is going through, or looks like, or could be going through something, a crisis, like that's the reference, right? A crisis.
Yes, some people are having crisis. Some people are just, you know, highly stressed, and so sometimes they might need a little help, you know, navigating that high level of stress. You know, they may have situations in their life that are just really overwhelming, and they just need that little bit of support. So the community as a whole, there's a lot of resources available. There's outpatient, there's inpatient. And so sometimes people don't necessarily have to be admitted. They can go to outpatient, meet with somebody once a week, and just kind of help them navigate that time in their life. But we are an inpatient facility, and when it gets to a point where you can't do that at an outpatient level, then it's really important to know that there is a facility. And we're a volunteer facility for 18 and older.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
they volunteer to come in, you know, get the resources they need to help them, you know, move forward successfully with the next chapter of their life, and we're here to do that.
Yeah, I remember I went through, you know, some issues, and thankfully I had, you know, the leaders of our store, they provided me with the phone number to be able to speak to somebody. And just vocalizing the things, just announcing them and getting them out of your head and like throwing them out to the real world, that in itself was like a big help towards getting over what felt like a slump, like a speed bump, you know? So I would definitely encourage anybody out there that's feeling that type of pressure, don't wait till it's, you know, to the point of my body is now physically incapable of getting out of bed. You know, get a hold of somebody, get in front of somebody, seek out your resources, ask your superiors, your leaders, you know, people that have experience with life. It's important. I know this kind of thing has affected me and my family and people around me, and it's a lot more powerful, especially the mindset of depression isn't real, and that mindset is not helpful towards people that need help, because you're trapped, you're stuck in your mind. So be empathetic towards people and definitely reach out. What do you think would be the first route? Like, is there a number that you would encourage anybody to reach out to, or just go find somebody?
Oh, there's several crisis hotlines here locally that you can call, and they can direct you to the level of care that you'll need. And so Bullhead, well, actually the whole tri-state area, when I got here and I talked about wanting to get out there and share this with the community, they've really embraced it, and I'm really excited that we're going to be able to assist our local veterans, because Las Vegas and Prescott is quite a ways for people to travel.
Yeah.
And some people have limited resources, so it's going to be nice to know that they have that resource right here in the community, and we're going to be able to cater to that clientele. And that's, I'm a veteran myself, so that,
Yeah,
it's kind of near and dear to me.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you have going on outside of this December 7th?
Yes, one of the things that I'm going to be doing is partnering with our industry partners and offering free workshops. And the workshops are going to be in leadership, communication, team building. There's several workshops that I'm going to be giving to our industry partners at no charge.
Right.
And it's basically just to make awareness of our facility and also to provide a service to the community. Because everybody that's entered this field did it because it's an altruistic profession and they want to give back.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they would be in another industry. And one of the things that I like to share with staff is everybody's critical to the success of our patients.
Absolutely.
And I'll give you an example. I guest spoke at a hospital, and I had a bunch of CNAs and housekeepers in the front row. Mm-hmm. And then there was the nurses and physicians and everybody else. And I told the CNAs and housekeepers, I said, your discipline is one of the most important disciplines in this facility. And a couple of them snickered, because it's entry level. And I said, no, you don't get it.
Right.
I said, when somebody comes into the facility, they don't know, does mom have a good physician or does dad have a good RN, unless they have a medical background. But everybody that walks into this facility can tell if it's clean, and they can tell if mom or dad have been changed
Right.
and cleaned, and those are those two disciplines. And oftentimes they're judging the whole hospital off those two disciplines.
Right.
And then you could see the light came on.
It's like the first impression.
Oh yeah, and you'll see patients sometimes, they'll pull a CNA or if it's a mental health facility, the tech, this is my nurse.
Yeah.
And to that patient, that is their nurse. Because that's who they're seeing a lot of times
Yeah.
during the day. And
And they're vulnerable.
Yes. So everybody plays a critical role. And it's the same thing in your industry, and I've been
So you dabbled in it, right?
Yes, I was in sales in the past, and I got my degree in business. And there's an irony here, because when I was in the medical field, I was told to treat the patients as customers, which I thought was kind of interesting, because here we are in the medical field, and they want you to treat your patients like customers. And then I was in sales and marketing, and they said treat your customers like patients. And I thought that was kind of funny, because so there is an overlap. Yeah. Just if you're selling a car or whatever the case is, you need to find out what their needs are.
Right.
What is it that they're going to need to be able to facilitate what they need. And so you have to ask the right questions. So essentially what you're doing is you're doing a diagnostic test on
Correct.
them. You're diagnosing what their needs are, and then you have to find the price point that's going to fit them and help them move forward successfully. And so there is a little bit of diagnosis involved in there. And the same thing when you're in the medical field, you need to treat them like a customer, and make sure that you're providing that level of service just like you would if you were in a service industry.
Cool.
Because essentially a medical field is a service industry. So there is a lot of overlap there. And it's funny, when I was in high school, I was working, and like I said, I have my degree in business, but I learned more from this gentleman when I was in high school than I ever did from a college professor. And so he was one of the best salesmen I ever seen. And he told me, he goes, I want you to remember the first time you meet somebody, be offering something, don't be asking for something.
Right.
And that has carried me throughout my whole marketing and service, career, because events like this, offer something to the community,
Absolutely.
And when you offer something to the community, you're also getting recognition for your organization, but that's not your primary focus. Your primary focus is, how can I help this community be more successful?
Right.
And in doing that, then you reap the rewards of that. But that shouldn't be your number one focus. And time is a commodity, just like money. If you want to know where somebody's heart is, see where they spend their time and they spend their money, and you know where their heart is.
Yeah, I like working for this company specifically because of how community-oriented they are. I've been here for about 6 years, and I volunteer for everything that I can. I mean, we're giving out turkeys, we've gone and cleaned up areas, all the parades and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, me. I even did Margarita Fest. It's a little different, but it was fun. So in general, I think it's awesome to be community-oriented and just kind of just having a good moral compass, really.
Oh yeah, that's critical. And I would have people, when I used to sell cars, they'd be like, I really want this car. And I was like, I get that, because that's a beautiful car. But let me share something with you. That price point is probably going to put your debt ratio too high.
Right.
Now, ultimately, it's your decision, okay? But in good conscience, I want to share this with you. In 6 months to a year from now, you're probably going to be overwhelmed with debt.
Right.
I would much rather sell you this car right here, which is just as good.
Does everything you said you need.
But at a better price point. And I think in the long run, you're going to be happier and be able to manage this. Mm-hmm. And what I found by doing that, instead of focusing on selling the highest ticket item, finding the right product for the right person, people would come back. They would bring their family back, because they were like, okay, he's not focused on the profit first and foremost. Yes, we all have to make a living. But if you focus on the need of your customer or your patient, if that's your primary focus, you don't have to worry about making a living. That'll take care of itself.
Yeah, we're instructed to have lifetime customers, and that means doing the right things for them, not trying to do the best thing for you. Mm-hmm. Changing subjects, tell us a little bit about Film Festival.
Oh, that's one of the things that I do in California, and we're actually looking at having one here. I host film festivals, and I just did that because I was teaching at the college, and some of my students that were business students were also film students, and they didn't have a venue to show their films. And so I went to one of the local theaters, and I said, I would really love to host a film festival here for our local artists. And the theater was like, yes, let's do this. This is great. Nobody's getting rich off this. It's just to give back to the community. But the nice thing is over the years, I've had 3 or 4 directors that have become extremely successful. I told them, don't forget me, but some of them, it's layers to be able to talk to them now because they're so successful. But I actually had one that called me the other day, and we have a film festival coming up in April, and he's like, I'd love to be a part of it. I'd love to come guest speak. And I was like, oh, that's great, because he's won of a bunch of awards now. When he came to my festival, he was basically starting out, and now he's very well known. But he didn't forget where he started, and that's really important. Don't, for anybody, don't forget where you started. Regardless of what industry you're in,
what you end up accomplishing in life.
Yeah, and give back. And there's another thing that I used to have in my business class, and you'll appreciate this being in sales, but it's tenacity trumps talent. And what I mean by that is I had a lot of talented students, and I saw talent wasted. Some of them took that natural talent they had and moved forward successfully. And some people that had maybe less talent, but they had more tenacity. They had that grit to keep getting up every day, no matter how many times they got knocked down, and keep moving forward. I've seen some of them pass up people that had talent because they had that inner, strength, that intestinal fortitude to keep pushing.
When I think of tenacity, I think of my good buddy, Joseph Cox. He is stubborn as a mule, just moving, and that's a guy that I think has a very good work ethic. And on that note, Mr. George Miller, it was an absolute pleasure to get to know you. You're doing amazing things for veterans and, the community itself, and I look forward to continue working with you, seeing everything that you're doing and being a part of, helping within the community. So if there's anything that you want to say to the community, go ahead.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon.
Later.